Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today we're jumping into something pretty fascinating, a real global phenomenon. The animated film KPop Demon Hunters. Just imagine this. A movie blending the whole dazzling world of K-pop superstardom with ancient Korean folklore. And then picture it just dropping onto streaming and completely dominating everywhere. Seems like a wild mix, right? But somehow it became this huge overnight sensation.
Oh, it absolutely did. And that's really our mission today, to unpack not just why K-pop Demon Hunters was such a massive global hit, but I think more importantly, what its success tells us, about the power of the Korean wave Hallyu and how it's really shaping global pop music and film right now. We're going to explore how this one film kind of shows where K-culture has been, but maybe even more, where it's actually headed on the world stage.
That's a really interesting way to frame it, a critical lens for sure. So, for this deep dive, we've pulled together quite a stack of sources. We've got news reports covering its, frankly, mind-boggling chart performance, some really sharp critical analyses looking at why it worked artistically, and even some pretty detailed fan theories about deeper meanings. Plus, of course, background on the Korean wave itself, so you get the full picture. Okay, let's get into it. This phenomenon.
Well, the first thing that strikes you is just the scale and the speed of it all. It lands on Netflix and almost instantly, bang, #1. Globally, we're talking topping charts in, 26 countries right off the bat. And then that grew to 41 countries within weeks.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a flash in the pan. It stuck around in the top 10 pretty much everywhere. Real staying power.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the numbers, was it? The cultural buzz was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, Netflix itself, the platform, they actually changed their official X profile, Twitter, their header name, to match the film's characters. That's a pretty big signal, right? It shows they knew they had something massive.
Exactly. And the reviews, the audience scores, they just mirrored that explosion. You mentioned Rotten Tomatoes, 94% from critics, 95% from audiences. That's almost unheard of. Animation sites like comicbook.com were calling it Netflix's new favorite movie, one of the best animated films ever. Some critics even went there saying it was better than Spider-Man. Which, wow, that's bold. Especially since Sony Pictures made it, and they're, the Spider-Man animation people.
That is a huge compliment. And a big win for Sony, definitely. People are saying it really helped boost their reputation again as a top animation studio. Shows they can deliver something really special and universally loved. But, this kind of huge success doesn't just happen randomly. So what was the magic ingredient here? It sounds like it boils down to that really unique blend you mentioned. K-pop meets Korean folklore.
That's precisely it. The core idea itself is just, captivating. You've got these K-pop superstars, Rumi, Mira, and Joy, who are secretly using their performance skills, their abilities, to protect their fans from these ancient supernatural threats. But here's the key. It's not just K-pop sprinkled on top of a fantasy story. The film genuinely weaves traditional Korean culture and indigenous beliefs right into its fabric. So you've got elements like Grim Reapers, the Aoyayunu Sarsha, who aren't just generic spooky figures, they're rooted in Korean afterlife beliefs. You see these intricate exorcism rituals, the sacred Sangjim sword, which isn't just a prop, it's historically significant, used to ward off evil. And even things like the Ilbomdodo painting, that sun, moon, and 5 peak screen symbolizing royalty. Deep cultural stuff.
And it goes beyond the big mythical stuff too, right? Into the everyday details of Korean life. That's often where the authenticity really hits home. Things like the old-fashioned snack bar food you see, the decorations in homes, those iconic views of the Han River, Naksan Park's Fortress Road, even tiny things like public bathhouse logos or the signs for traditional Korean medicine clinics. They're not just background noise. They feel like they really ground you in the setting, make it feel real.
Mm-hmm. And that incredible detail comes straight from the director, Maggie Kang. She's Korean Canadian, and she apparently spent over 9 years working on this, really immersing herself in Korean goblin myths, folk tales, the whole 9 yards. But not just that, she and her team dove deep into K-pop fan culture too. Everything from fandom slang and lightstick designs to collecting photo cards and how fan signing events work. They apparently became huge K-pop fans themselves during the process. So that dedication, you can feel it.
You really can. It makes it connect with K-pop fans, but also just anyone watching. And I thought it was interesting how the animation itself took cues from real idols. You mentioned BTS, TXT, 80Zs, Stray Kids, even Big Bang and Monsta X, plus actors like Cha Eun-woo and Nam Joo-hyuk. And they even got Korean-American actors like Ken Jeong and Daniel Dae Kim involved in the dubbing to keep that authentic feel, whichever language you watch it in.
Yeah, even down to the mouth shapes in the animation, apparently designed to look like they're speaking Korean, even when you're hearing the English dub. It's that thoroughness.
That's amazing detail.
And the music. We can't forget the music. Original tracks from major Korean labels, big groups like Twice singing on the soundtrack. That track Golden hit #1 globally. The whole OST racked up tens of millions of streams super fast. It's not just about K-pop. It is K-pop baked right in.
So this blend, deep cultural roots, global format, it feels like this film's journey isn't just a one-off hit. It kind of reflects the bigger story of Hallyu itself, doesn't it? Thinking about the Korean wave, Hallyu, that huge global interest in South Korean pop culture since the 90s, K-pop, K-dramas, films. It's soft power, but it's also big business. This film feels like a snapshot of that evolution, like you said, deep roots, wide branches.
Exactly. If you look back, say, to the 1990s, South Korea was described as a faithful learner. They were looking at Western Japanese culture, benchmarking them, figuring out production. But critically, they were slowly starting to infuse their own Korean sentiments, their own way of telling stories. That was the key. That subtle cultural imprinting. And you saw early successes like the drama Winter Sonata, which was massive across Asia, or those first-gen idol groups, HOT, SES, conquering Asia. That was kind of Hallyu 1.0.
Right, faithful learners, but adding their own flavor. Then technology kicks in. The mid-2000s, internet, social media, Hallyu just explodes beyond Asia. Hallyu 2.0, right? That's when K-pop really goes global. You get Psy's Gangnam Style breaking YouTube, BTS starting their climb. It became truly worldwide thing.
And it just kept climbing. The late 2010s felt like another turning point. BTS hitting #1 on Billboard multiple times, and then Parasite, winning 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, the first non-English film ever to do that. That wasn't just about awards, it felt like a statement. It basically proved that something deeply, specifically Korean could be the global standard. It didn't need to be changed or diluted to have universal appeal.
From learning to leading, that's a powerful shift. Which brings us back to K-pop Demon Hunters and this idea the director Maggie Kang uses. She calls it a Korean film, even though it had U.S. money and was in English. She uses the term Koreanism. Can you break that down a bit more? What exactly is Koreanism?
Sure. So Koreanism isn't just like adding kimchi to the plot. It's more of a core creative strategy. It means putting Korean emotions, traditions, specific cultural viewpoints right at the heart of the work, the absolute center. Then you take that deeply rooted core and express it using the language of global pop culture, English, animation, maybe a certain music style. It's about holding on to your cultural identity, but finding ways to translate it linguistically and narratively so everyone gets it. And you blend tradition with modernity to create something new, something globally resonant. It's asking, how do we make the most Korean thing also the most global thing?
Okay, so it's not superficial. It's the essence being Korean, but the delivery being global. That makes sense. It explains why the film felt so genuine, but also so easy to connect with.
Exactly. And you see this Koreanism play out elsewhere in K-culture too. Think about K-beauty. It's not just makeup. It's those unique skincare routines, the multi-step processes, cushion foundations, things that started very Korean but changed the global beauty game.
Mm.
Or K-food. There's this top steakhouse in New York, Kotie. They take traditional Korean galbi, marinated short ribs, right? Even
Mhm.
steamed eggs, jiren jjim, and they present it super luxuriously. Called a steamed egg a savory egg souffle. It's still fundamentally Korean food, the taste, the essence, but they package it for a high-end global market, preserving the soul, but elevating the presentation.
That's a great comparison. Same principle as K-pop Demon Hunters. Okay, let's shift a bit. Beyond the screen, this movie has sparked a whole world of fan theories. It's fascinating how fans are digging into the symbolism, connecting dots to mythology and K-pop history. Like the idea that the main trio, Rumi, Mira, Joy, might be a nod to pioneering first-gen girl groups like the Kim sisters or SES.
Oh, yeah, the fan community is dissecting everything. And a lot of people are convinced a sequel will bring in a fourth member. You know, that power of four thing you see in later groups like 2NE1 or Blackpink. And they've got evidence, or theories anyway. The characters' colors and symbols. Rumi is white, Joy is Archer turquoise, Mira is black. Fans link these to three of the four guardians in mythology: White Tiger, Azure Dragon, Black Tortoise.
Which leaves one missing guardian, the vermilion bird, the phoenix. And the theory is the film hints at this. Maybe the villain's reddish aura leaves space for a true vermilion hero to join later. Plus, the musical connections. People point out similarities to Blackpink's sound, producers like Teddy involved, even lyrical hints. Some say Rumi's design looks like Jenny from Kill This Love.
Mm-hmm. And the idea of a fourth member perhaps being a foreign idol, that would perfectly mirror how diverse K-pop itself is becoming. It all feeds into this rich tapestry of speculation.
It shows how invested people are. And speaking of hidden depths, fans noticed mythological things like the Han-Moon barrier against evil in the movie. This is apparently not from traditional folklore.
Right, it seems to be unique to the film's world, which suggests, a deliberate choice by the creators. It gives them room to build out their own mythology and sequels, expand the world without being strictly tied to existing legends.
So much depth packed in there. But okay, this huge success, it also shines a light on a tricky issue for the Korean content industry, doesn't it? Even with all this Koreanism, this deep cultural core, sometimes the K in K content ends up being, well, just a label. What do you mean by that? How does the success not fully flow back?
Yeah, this is the double-edged sword. K-pop Demon Hunters, for all its Koreanness, was produced by Sony Pictures, which is Japanese-owned, and distributed globally by Netflix, which is US-based. So while Korea gets the cultural pride, the soft power boost, the big financial rewards, especially from the long-term stuff, the intellectual property, the IP, think merchandise, sequels, games, spin-offs, that money mostly flows to the global platforms and studios, not necessarily back to the Korean creators or production houses that originated the core idea.
Ah, right. So the creative engine is Korean, but the profit engine is largely elsewhere. That's definitely a challenge, a structural problem, really.
Exactly. It's been called a subcontracting structure. Korean creators often get paid a production fee, a one-time payment, but they might lose control over and the long-term income from their own IP, and that forces them into this cycle. To stay afloat, they constantly need to create the next hit, the next project, because they're not building wealth from their past successes. They're kind of creating the raw materials for others to build empires on. It's a major hurdle for the long-term health of the Korean creative economy.
And it's not just about money, is it? There's that weirdly quiet reaction you mentioned in some places. Like in Japan, despite the film doing well on Netflix there, the mainstream media coverage was apparently minimal, almost like ignoring a huge hit happening right next door.
It's really interesting. because the viewership data shows Japanese audiences are watching it on Netflix. So it's not audience rejection. It suggests maybe an editorial decision-making process, maybe a kind of implicit bias in some traditional media outlets against highlighting massive success from certain foreign content, especially Korean content, even when a Japanese company, Sony, is involved. So you get this gap between what people are actually watching and enjoying and what gets talked about publicly in the mainstream. The success is real, but it's not getting the broad public acknowledgement you might expect.
So, putting this all together, what's the big picture takeaway for Hallyu's future? K-pop Demon Hunters clearly isn't just a fun movie. It's a powerful example of the Korean wave's journey from being regional to a global force. It really shows the power of authentic Korean culture presented in a way the whole world can access, thanks to creators mastering this Koreanism idea.
It really does. It proves that the most Korean thing can be the most global thing. But it also throws that economic structure into sharp relief, the shift towards an IP-driven business where Korean creators need to figure out how to keep control and benefit long term.
Right. So as Korean culture keeps setting global trends fueled by Koreanism and these huge platforms, the big question becomes, how do you make sure those deep roots of creativity are not just celebrated, but economically rewarded? How do Korean creators actually get to, reap the full benefits of their global impact instead of just being subcontractors in their own success story? What's the next step for Hallyu, culturally and economically, to make sure that value stays and build something sustainable back home?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? And how it gets answered will really shape the future of global entertainment, not just for Korea, but for everyone.